Hey friends, I'm once again curled up in the cozy corner here at Heartscape Studio, where we're learning the system of Reiki to live lives that are rooted, spacious, connected, and that provision us well for the journey home to ourselves. And I'm coming here to you this very early, fine, beautiful, crisp, very late fall morning to wish you a happy achieving the impossible day. Wait, do you not know what achieving the impossible day is? That's because it's kind of a personal holiday that I invented about 3 years ago that I've only spoken publicly about a handful of times. So you're forgiven if you don't know about achieving the impossible day. But I wanted to invite you all in on this wonderful moment of celebrating this capacity that we all have to achieve something that feels impossible in our lives, because it feels increasingly like an incredibly important skill for us to have, an incredibly important set of mindsets to cultivate in our lives to help us to dream bigger and to move towards things that have previously felt impossible. So I just wanted to welcome you in, invite you in to this day of celebration, and just tell you a little bit about what I achieved this year that felt impossible. But first, let me just tell you where this idea came from in the first place. So today, December 16th, is the birthday of one of my very favorite YouTubers, Jess of Roots and Refuge Farm. And I've been following Jess for about 5 years on YouTube. Her family's journey into small scale homesteading and then medium scale homesteading. I've learned so much from her about tending to the land that you live on, growing food, tending our families well, building communities, raising animals, raising plants, cooking, building things, just all kinds of skills that are really important to me that I've been cultivating in my life for a very long time, and that I've really appreciated good mentorship from ye old YouTubes in that area. And Jess is one of my favorite people to learn from, first of all, because she's delightful, but also because her particular mindset and her set of values and the way that she moves through the world is so personally inspiring to me. She's a person who's just profoundly rooted in her values and the values of her family, and the way, and very keenly. Sorry, my cat is up to some shenanigans in the window over there. She's very keenly aware and aligned with the way in which her personal and family, ways of living in the world are intimately connected with community and with the wider web of life out in the world. And on her birthday, a few years back, she put out a video that talked about their journey into homesteading through the lens of achieving the impossible, and kind of retelling her family's story of coming from, pretty significant poverty and feeling like, owning land and growing their own food and dedicating their lives to doing that, rather than having normal jobs or whatever, truly was just a dream that felt like it was not something that they could ever live. And yet they felt so profoundly compelled towards this lifestyle, and felt so, spirit led, and felt so, in their bones and in their heart that this was how they were meant to raise their family and live their lives, that they just kept making tiny changes in the direction of that dream. They got really, really, really clear about their values. They got really, really clear about the way in which their faith and their spiritual practice aligned with these goals. And they just kept making small, faithful, values-aligned decisions and actions in service of this dream that felt absolutely impossible. And in a relatively short period of time, those actions, those diligent actions, paired with some really powerful synchronicities in the world to allow them to purchase their first homestead and begin this lifestyle. And YouTube was one of those synchronicities that opened up for them, allowing them to basically earn their income through creating content rather than through working another job, aligning those things together. And, there's a number of things about this story that really stood out to me. If I think about it, alongside my practice of the system of Reiki, which of course we talk about in great abundance here on this channel. We look at the ways in which our lives are interconnected with the wider web of life. This is a concept that comes out of Buddhism. It's also present in many other spiritual traditions. This idea that we have our sovereign individual life. That is our way that we're walking. We have our values, we make our decisions, we take our actions. We have all the things that make up our life. That is our way. And then we have this larger being that is this interconnected web of life that we are one expression of, and that all of the resources available in that web of life are part and parcel of who and what we are. And when we align ourselves, when we focus our attention and align our energy, and therefore align our actions and our decisions and the ways that we move through the world with that mindset of that interconnected life, that synchronicities open up in our life, that alignments happen in our life that seem like they're bigger than our individual decisions could possibly make happen. And this is something that I've observed in my life. I have heard spoken of in many people's lives who walk, some form of path that aligns mindset, focused attention, energy, values, and spiritual practice, along with, this sense of achieving a greater good, allowing our lives to have, alignment and meaning, however we make that meaning. So, her story really stood out to me as an example of how, being dedicated, being diligent in a practice can really impact our lives in ways that feel impossible. She was telling the story through a Christian lens, right? Through her Christian faith and talking about prayer and her relationship with God as that guiding force, as that point of alignment and point of synchronicity in her life. I think about it through a different lens, through, the lens of Reiki, through the lens of Buddhist thought and philosophy, but they're pointing to similar truths, right? Which is one of the things I love best, is finding these places in different spiritual traditions, different cultural traditions, where the same truth kind of pops up and expresses itself, maybe using different words, different images, different metaphors, but the essential truth is the same. So I really loved seeing that connection between the way she was talking about her story and the way that I was understanding Reiki. So this was several years ago. And I was so just tickled by this idea of, our spiritual practice and the way we live our life, opening up possibility where it seemed like there was impossibility in our life. And there's many times in my life, including right now, where there are things that I deeply desire that feel impossible, right? That feel like they couldn't possibly be achieved by me in this lifetime. And yet there have been some of those that I have in fact achieved, that have opened up like a beautiful rose in my life through my own diligent effort, my own focus, my own, choices and moving towards that. And amazing synchronicities in the world that opened up things that I wasn't aware were going to open up, right? So that's kind of where this idea of like marking that phenomenon with this day as a way to kind of keep my attention on this process as a cyclical process that I engage with throughout the year. So I chose this day, December 16th, Jess's birthday, because that was the day she chose to share this vision and this experience that she had with achieving the impossible a bunch of years ago. So here we are today, December 16th, happy achieving the impossible day. I really want to invite you into this kind of thought experiment, right? What are some of the things that we deeply want that feel impossible? There are many strategies for engaging with that. And this video is not like a how to achieve the impossible. Here's your step-by-step guide. That's not what we're up to here. It's really more about having the conversation about it, because it's a tender conversation, right? I can't guarantee that anything that feels impossible to you, if you work really hard at it, that you will actually achieve it. I can't guarantee that for myself. There's been plenty of things that have yet to be achieved that still feel completely impossible. And yet, since I've been in this practice of awareness of the possibility of the impossible and building that awareness into certain structures and cycles in my life, for example, I build it into my business planning every year. I just went through a cycle of business planning for 2025 for my wee tiny little speck of a business. And I always have a piece in there ever since starting this day. I have a line item in there that I do visioning around that's called What Feels Impossible, specifically around my business. And so then I do that for my personal life as well. So I wanted to share one thing that I achieved this year that absolutely felt impossible, even up to a year or two ago, that has fundamentally transformed my life in ways that are incredibly meaningful to me and will have lasting impact in my life. So I want to share that with you. Partly, hopefully, it's a little bit inspiring, but also just to celebrate it, right? So this is a celebration video, and then invite you into this process, and maybe share one that I'm going to start working with for the coming year. So this particular moment of achieving the impossible this year is around my physical health. And for context, I am a person who has lived a very sedentary life, as many Americans do. This is a combination of my personality, my just kind of way of being in the world, my energy levels, and just the kind of jobs and activities that I've had. My way of being is very kind of introspective, very kind of cerebral. I love to kind of sit and think and daydream. I love to read and do art projects and, write and like lots of things that involve being, still and cozy and curled up and really living in my imagination and in my mind and in my planning and all of that. It's just kind of my way of being. I've always been like that. And I've always done jobs that were very sedentary, that did not require me to move much at all. My current job involves sitting here and talking to you on YouTube, teaching online, teaching in person, in usually a seated position, doing Reiki sessions where I'm standing but very still, very sedentary jobs. Before that, I was doing office jobs at a university, right? Teaching and admin jobs at a university. And while, working at the university on a beautiful campus, I did get out for some nice walks, most days. They were short and just kind of localized. And once I left the university, started working from home, even that stopped altogether. I was completely uninspired to go for walks like in my neighborhood. That was just not something that interested me at all. So I didn't do it. So various things compounded. Those ways of being, the fact that my job is very sedentary, the fact that I had a car accident a bunch of years ago that caused kind of an injury in my right hip, that caused my hip to be out of alignment in a weird way that I kind of just didn't deal with for a long time. Over time, that caused a lot of joint pain in my hips and my knees and my ankles. And, these things just compound over time. And before you know it, I had chronic joint pain, right? And that compounded with a couple of cycles of pretty intense depression where I just really hunkered down into myself for big periods of time. And all of those factors in my life just compounded and added up to one day I woke up in significant pain, all of my joints just inflamed and angry. And I just had this like meltdown where I realized that I was gonna be living a life of chronic pain. And in that moment, it felt like I could not possibly do anything about it. And in that moment, I like broke down and I just kind of accepted I'm gonna live a life of chronic pain from now on. Now, I was about 45 years old at the time. It's not very old to consign yourself to a life of chronic pain, especially when there are avoidable ways of dealing with what you're dealing with, right? But that's what the mindset was at that time. And I lived with that mindset for a period of time. And I'm not even sure what exactly happened. I think it was another just like waking up one day and making a different decision. Like deciding I surely there's something I could do about this. So I started with like the small change, right? What's the one thing that I feel like I can do? Because like starting a whole exercise regime and like getting myself in shape, because of course I now was also carrying around about like a lot more weight than I needed to be carrying around. Probably a good 40, 50 pounds overweight by that point. And so that wasn't helping. And like dealing with that felt impossible. So I'm like, what's the one thing I can do? Well, I had gotten a recommendation for a chiropractor from somebody I trust. I was like, okay, I can go to this chiropractor. I can ask if she can do anything about this injury to my hip, right? If she can adjust my hip so that it's in alignment, it doesn't hurt so much to walk. Maybe that would reduce the pain that I'm having in all of these places. So I did that. And holy hell, she did, in fact, in the very first session, just fix it. Now, not entirely. I've been going to her ever since, every week for a couple of months and then dialing it back. Now I go about every 2 months. So it certainly was a long-term investment of care. I've been going to her for about 2 years now. But that very first session, I remember the sensation in my body of feeling like I was straight again. Like I had been crooked, like literally my hips were like crooked and I had to like adjust my spine to walk straight because my hips were crooked. And of course that was causing everything else to be all wackadoo and painful. And that feeling of being aligned, right? Just that physical embodied sense of alignment changed my mindset tremendously. And it immediately reduced the pain. And that was a big deal. So that one tiny step opened up a sense of possibility that wasn't there before. Now I asked the chiropractor, what can I do to keep improving, right? Like obviously it's not just about coming to the chiropractor. Like what can I do to help my body get back into alignment and reduce this pain? And she said, well, it sure would help if you walked every day. If you just went for a walk. And the words out of my mouth, this was maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, maybe a year and a half, was that is impossible. In that moment, it felt impossible to me, for me to walk just for the sake of walking for health every day. And for many of you, that'll sound ridiculous because walking every day is a pretty normal thing to do. Pretty common thing to do. Not hard for most of us, well, for many of us maybe, but I'd never done it. I'd never had a walking practice just for the sake of walking or health that didn't involve going somewhere for a specific purpose, like I'm walking to an errand, right, that's close by my house that I can get to, or walking somewhere explicitly beautiful, right? Going for a nature walk, right? Like again, even when I worked on the college campus, there was a little wooded area. It felt accessible to walk there because it was beautiful. The point of the walking was to go be in nature and for it to be beautiful. The point of the walking wasn't for my own health and my own body. So absent access to that type of natural space that was just right there where I was, and absent like a task to complete with the walking, it felt impossible because I had never had that habit and it was not in my mindset that that was something that I could do. And so I was like, well, I'll do my best, but I don't think that's going to happen. So fast forward another few months, I'm getting improvement from the chiropractor. And I'm like, all right, what's the next step here? I was like, I've got to address my weight because this extra weight that I'm carrying around is compounding the pain in my joints. And it's making it harder for the chiropractor's work to settle into my body, right? Like my body's taking longer to adjust. because of the pressure of this extra weight. So I started doing, I did the thing that felt more accessible to me, which was to work with food. Because I've always had for a long time, I've had a very robust relationship with food. I love to cook. I'm a gardener. Like, I know a lot about nutrition. I know a lot about what my body, thrives with. And I have some bad eating habits, usually in the portion size department. So it felt accessible to me to adjust my relationship with food because I already knew quite a bit about how to cook healthy meals. And I already have the habit of cooking almost all of my meals from scratch. So that felt achievable. I felt like I already had a pretty good relationship with that area of my life, but there were some specific things that needed to be adjusted to, make it better. So I did that. Started working with that and started feeling different and better immediately. And that opened up more sense of possibility. So then another YouTuber that I watch a lot of YouTube. YouTube is my primary source of entertainment and education on the interwebs. So another YouTuber that I watch that is not in the fitness realm at all. They're actually in movie theory. They talk about entertainment, but they're also into fitness. And so they hosted a step challenge. Just a walking challenge for their viewers. Get this app, count your steps. The app will help, correlate the steps, put it into this, metrics that shows everybody where everybody's at. It wasn't a competition. It was a challenge. It was a collaborative, cooperative challenge. And I loved that. I love the invitation for, a wide audience of people from all over the country and the world to, take on this, this challenge for themselves and to do that collaboratively and with a lot of celebration built into the process. So I loved that. So I did it, and it was hard, but I achieved it. I did by the second to last day, I had achieved whatever the goal was that we had for that challenge. I did, in fact, walk most days, not every day, but most days. The goal was 10,000 steps a day. I absolutely thought that was impossible, but what I made my goal was, 4,000 to 5,000 steps a day. Mind you, I was coming from under 2,000 steps a day. Most days, somewhere between 900 and 1,200 steps a day was like my normal. Which basically meant I didn't really leave the house or my car, right? So that's like driving to different errands, driving around downtown instead of walking around downtown, right? So, small mindsets. Okay, you park somewhere downtown, you walk to all your errands. Lo and behold, you've got 2,000 steps right there, whatever. So now I'm starting to engage with this idea of walking through the lens of a challenge that's cooperative, it's collaborative, it's celebratory, there's a lot of support, and it's a little bit gamified, right? Because there's a kind of a gamification in these sorts of challenges, which works well for my brain. So all of a sudden, I'm walking more. I'm not achieving that 10,000 steps a day, but I'm walking most days. Okay. So I join another challenge. I get a more robust app that helps me track both my food and my movement and my walking and other things. And all of a sudden, I'm slowly building not only a habit, but a practice of walking every day. I'm changing how I think about how I move through my day. For example, walking around downtown to do my errands instead of driving to every store. And this is the wild part, people. This is the part that felt impossible. I'm starting to really enjoy it. I'm starting to love it. I'm starting to really thrive, putting my headphones in, moving my body at whatever pace feels good. All of a sudden, I'm walking not just to do errands, not just to be out in nature, not just for fitness and to get my numbers on the app because it's a game, but because I want to, because I love it, because my body wants it, and my body gets mad at me if I don't do it. I rediscovered my absolute passion for 90s heavy metal music and grunge and pop punk, and like that just gets me going on a good walk. All of that is to say, God, this turned into a much longer story than I thought. I thought this was going to be like a 7-minute video just telling you all about achieving the impossible day. Ha! We all know I like to talk. No chance was this going to be a 7-minute video. Okay. Well, if you've stuck with me this long, thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you for celebrating with me, listening to my rambling. Long story short, I'm now almost a year in to this experiment. I now walk every day. I routinely hit those 10,000 step marks, often more. I've lost about 25 pounds and continuing to work on that. My joint pain has been gone this whole time. I went from resigning myself to a life of chronic pain that would only get worse and worse and worse to eliminating that chronic pain almost entirely. Sometimes it starts to creep back if I'm, not careful about certain things, but I know how to get it back in alignment, right? I know how to adjust it. I have more energy. I feel better about myself. I've had less depression spirals come through. I enjoy my neighborhood more. I know my neighborhood more. I feel very competent in just moving around my town without feeling like, I don't want to drive to all these places. It's changed everything about my mindsets and the way my body feels. I've found new ways to be in my Reiki practice through moving meditation out in the world. It's making me stronger in my Reiki practice because it really benefits us to practice our meditation and our Reiki practice when we're out in the world, not just when we're kind of cloistered in a quiet environment, but to really be engaged with the world while we're in our practice. So that has gotten stronger. Everything has gotten stronger because of this simple decision to no longer live in pain and taking tiny little steps to move towards something that felt impossible, that I literally said out of my mouth when I was advised to do this. I said to my chiropractor, that is impossible. Clearly it wasn't, because here I am. Those same YouTubers had another step challenge recently, the month of November. And it was kind of a collective challenge. They set a group goal based on how many people. I think they wanted to get 40 million steps between everybody who was participating. And each person was allotted 150,000 steps for the month of November. By the end of November, I had walked 210,331 steps, which was 146% of my goal. The whole group of us had also achieved about 141% of that 40 million step goal. And the thing is, it wasn't hard. It was easy. I forgot most days I was even doing a step competition. I'd be like, I better check wow, I'm ahead. I was ahead the whole time. So that's my story of achieving the impossible this past year. I remember last year on December 16th, being in this state of curiosity about what needed to be achieved and how I would get there. I didn't know it was going to be this particular goal, but this is what it ended up being. And I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for having practices and processes and mindsets that help me move towards something that feels impossible in ways that are achievable, that are rooted in my values, in what matters to me, and in my lifestyle, and changing that lifestyle in ways that are meaningful. So I invite you to consider what moments in your life have you already experienced where you achieved something that felt impossible? And is there something in your life that feels impossible that you might like to take tiny changes and tiny steps towards to try to bring it into possibility in your life? That's my invitation to you. I will tell you for accountability that the one that is on my mind is around freedom of movement in a different way. So, freedom of movement for my personal body. But I really am feeling so strongly called to travel in new ways in the coming year or two or three. There are many places in the United States and in the world that are really calling me, places that I want to go and do my work, where I want to go teach, where I want to go learn from other people. My kitten would like to achieve the impossible of making me get off this video so I can play with her. Very soon, Una. I want to travel. I want to be able to have the freedom of movement to go where I need to go. And right now, financially, that feels impossible. With, other obligations that I have and just the means that I have in this moment, it feels absolutely impossible to just pick up and go to North Carolina to go teach in my friend's studio that I very much want to go. Going to, my other friend's studio in Minnesota and teaching with her. My best friend and I will be turning 50 in 3 years. We would love to go to Scotland together. It's kind of a, heritage pilgrimage to the ancestral lands of Scotland. She and I have been talking about doing that for years. And we've said, for our 50th birthday, we'd love to spend it together in Scotland. It feels very alive. It feels like a very alive and potent goal, and it feels impossible to me right now. So I am putting that into my sphere of possibility here on Achieving the Impossible Day. And again, it's about aligning my values with my choices, with my actions, with synchronicities in the world, and paying attention to those synchronicities and moving towards them. So check in with me about that goal. We'll see where that gets to, right? And if I don't achieve that this year or next year or the next year, that's okay, right? I'll continue working with the energy of it. All right, this video got so much longer than I had expected it to get. Thank you so much for hanging in there with me. If you are here with me at the end, I want to know from you, what is it that feels impossible to you that you really, really want to achieve in your life? I just invite you to be brave and say it, right? Saying it isn't going to make it happen, but saying it is going to put the energy of it into the world, and it's going to allow me to help celebrate it with you, to celebrate that desire and that joy with you. And maybe we can have a little conversation about it. So let me know, how does this land for you? Thank you so much for listening, for celebrating with me my achievement of the impossible from last year. And in whatever way makes sense to you on this December the 16th, take a step towards something that feels impossible. Figure out a way to celebrate this day in your life and let me know how that works for you. And to Jessica Sowards of Roots and Refuge Farm, happy birthday. Happy Achieving the Impossible Day. Thank you so much for your inspiration, for your light, for your all the education and generosity that you put out into the world, the ways in which you've inspired so many of us in our dreams, not only in the realm of gardening and homesteading, but also in all of our dreams, all of the realms of places that feel impossible that we want to move towards. I appreciate you very, very much. All right, friends, whatever this day brings for you, may you be deeply provisioned for your journey towards the impossible. Thank you so much for being with me today. Until next time, I love you. Goodbye.